If you feel guilty when someone misunderstands you, if you feel anxious when someone dislikes your content, if you feel responsible for how people interpret what you create, it's not because you care too much. It's because you were trained to feel responsible for emotional responses that were never yours to carry. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Sherman Rivers. Today we're diving into one of the most common and most exhausting patterns creators experience: feeling responsible for how people respond to your work. This shows up as walking on eggshells, over-explaining, over-scripting, over-editing, shrinking your expression, trying to please everyone, trying not to offend anyone. But this pattern didn't start as a creator. It started long before that. Let's break it down. You learned early that other people's emotions were your responsibility. If you grew up in an environment where adults were unpredictable, or emotions were explosive, or anger came without warning, or silence meant danger, if approval was conditional, love was inconsistent, mistakes brought punishment, you had to regulate yourself to avoid conflict. Here's some of the things that you learn. I must manage other people's reactions in order for me to stay safe. And that becomes a lifelong pattern. And it shows up today when you create. Creative expression triggers childhood programming. When you express yourself creatively, you are visible, you're vulnerable, you're exposed, you're expressive, and you're also taking up space. All these things you may have been taught were unsafe. So your old programming kicks in. The need to make sure nobody gets upset. You try to say things in a way that won't offend anyone. You say, let me be clear so I'm not misunderstood. And let me be perfect so that no one judges me. You're not protecting your audience. You're protecting your inner child. You're not afraid of reactions. You're afraid of consequences. When someone reacts negatively, your nervous system jumps to an old conclusion. If they're upset, I'm in danger. Even if there's no punishment, there's no conflict, there's no loss, there's no threat. Your system responds as if there is, because historically there was. You're not afraid of reactions. You're afraid of what reactions used to mean. Hey, quick break, quick message. If you are stuck forcing output or constantly trying to control your creative process, this is for you. Creator Metaphysics is a free weekly newsletter exploring why creators struggle and how clarity replaces force. Join free at creatormetaphysics.com or scan the QR code you see on your screen. There's also a link down in the description. Here's an insight. Feeling responsible is actually self-protection. Many creators think, I'm too empathetic, I care too much about people, I'm too sensitive to criticism, but the truth goes much, much deeper than that. You're trying to prevent emotional pain by controlling other people's responses, not to manipulate them, but to protect yourself. Responsibility becomes a shield. If you can control their reaction, you feel safer. If you can't, the ground feels unstable. In reality, you're interpreting reactions through the lens of identity. Here's the hard truth. You think you're responsible for people's reactions because you've tied their response to your identity. For example, if someone dislikes your video, you interpret it as, I'm not enough. If someone misunderstands you, you interpret it as, I'm not clear. If someone criticizes you, you interpret it as, I'm wrong. You feel responsible because you feel evaluated, but you're not. They're responding from their lens, not your worth. The truth is this: you are not responsible for anyone's interpretation. You control your intention, your expression, your clarity, your authenticity, your presence, but you do not control their interpretation, their triggers, their mood, their awareness, their insecurities, their projections, their emotional history. You can influence your message, but you cannot control someone else's meaning. Interpretation is their responsibility, not yours. Here's something really, really beautiful. Emotional freedom comes from releasing what was never yours. When you let go of responsibility for their understanding, their approval, their comfort, their emotions, their reactions, you regain your voice, your creative freedom, your authenticity, your confidence, your alignment, and your impact. Your job is expression. Theirs is interpretation. The moment you honor that boundary, your creative life transforms. So think about this. You're not responsible for how people react. You were simply conditioned to believe you were. But now you know the truth. Your audience's reactions belong to them, not you. In the next video in this micro series, we'll talk about how focusing on metrics destabilizes your confidence.